That 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 should work. Yep. Let's see. Hello, everybody. So, welcome to another. Did you know that? I love it. Already the first ABBK. So sorry, Kyle and Kingsley. Um, so our topic today is NanoMesh. So today also we're doing a simulcast for the first time. We're also sending this to our YouTube channel and our Facebook Live. We're doing a little testaroonie here with you guys to see um, how this is going to work for everybody. Let me just make sure we've got good movement here, that you guys see everything that is changing. So I'm just moving the sphere around a little bit, put it in the middle, turn it on polyframe, making sure that all that is running good. Okay, so that seems to be looking all right there. So we're just double checking, making sure I've got a good connection stream. And of course, just at that moment, I lose my tablet. Oh, good times. All right, well, we're going to have to use a mouse today. I just seriously lost my Wacom driver. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to be looking at NanoMesh. So is everyone seeing my screen where I have a red sphere, or are you still seeing a gray sphere? Because seeing that we're trying out this new um, capability to simulcast to multiple devices, we want to make sure that everything is running good on everyone's side before I start diving into everything. Yep. Okay. So we're good. It looks like we're good on Facebook. All right. So let's get into this. Let's get into kind of, you know what? I kind of want to go through a little bit of the idea and history. So what I want you to think about for NanoMesh, think of it as a combination of doing um, micromesh and also insert mesh brushes. But then we've added way more capability. Okay, so I want to just start with the concepting idea, and then we're going to start putting it in practice in the things here. So we always start with the plane. It's the simplest thing to go with, right? And purple. All right, can't have any better. Okay, so here we go. So so what I'm going to do is open up in geometry, modify topology. There's a micromesh. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is going to become important because we're actually going to use these two buttons right here throughout the day as well. So micromesh was made way before Nano. I think version 4 or 4 maybe, if I remember right. So I have a phone call coming in, so you have to excuse me for a moment. So what we're going to do is let that phone call finish off. It never fails. The beginning of every one of my broadcasts has something fun going on. Okay, so what this allows us to do is grab any mesh. So I can say micro mesh, and then you can see your tool palette will open up. So let's say I want to put a star. I'm going to click on that, and then ZBrush is going to tell me, hey, this is a rendering feature. Okay, so I'm going to say OK, and it looks like nothing happens, right? It's because I got to go tell the renderer to look at this. So I got to go to render properties, and I click this draw micro mesh. Okay, and you notice there's a bunch of little white dots that are popping up everywhere. Okay, so what we're going to do is now just render. So we're just going to BPR, which our shortcut is Shift R. So we're going to render that out, and then you see every single polygon, okay, is getting that star. So again, we're spending NanoMesh today, but I kind of want to give the history and also because this is kind of the same thing and show a little bit of the idea, the difference between the two as well. So the nice thing about this is we're dealing with a plane, right? So I'm going to switch to the move brush, and let's just move some of the surface in and out a bit in different spots. Let's go a little crazy here. And then now watch what happens when we render. So I'm just going to put a little bit on an angle here. All right, and Shift R that. And so you can see the star's shape is taking the shape of the polygon. Okay, so that's key to understand that. Okay, is that shape that you're getting now here, because NanoMesh isn't going to do this, and it could be very beneficial to this. So it's not going to stretch the geometry. So you can see what MicroMesh does. It's pretty easy. So whatever tool you guys load, so if I go to the tool palette and I even say dogs, I want a dog on that plane, right? I can go here and I can say MicroMesh, and let's throw the dog on it. And now when we render out, we've got dogs. Or, if you've watched the movie Snatch, digs. You like the digs? You like digs? Right? There you go. You got a bunch of dogs. Right? And then you can look at this and go, hey, they're kind of facing the wrong way. So there's a couple things you can do with this. You either got to go back to the tool and change that, but this is where some of these other buttons will come into play. So I can even show a section of this, and I can spin my edges, and you can see the dogs actually spinning as well. So you can see these dogs now are facing a different direction than all the other digs, okay, on there. So we'll let that finish rendering out, and then bada bing. Okay, so that's MicroMesh. So remember this, okay, because we're gonna combining these to make our nanos. So let's get a new plane. All right, and then now the next thing we came out with in a later version is insert mesh brushes. Okay, so we're allowed to grab any piece of geometry we want. In this particular case, we have an IMM, which is for insert multi-mesh. So I'm going to hit M to pull up these, right? And then now I can grab these and position these wherever I want. Okay? So we wanted to take this concept and this idea of, okay, we have the capability to insert particular pieces of mesh on a polygon like we do with micromesh, or we have the capability to have a brush where we draw and we can make these any different sizes that we want. We can be consistent sizing by holding the control key, so no matter where I draw, even if I pull it away from my surface, it's not going to matter. Okay? And let's look at combining these ideas. So let's separate the plane and the gears here. So the easiest thing for me to do here is split the similar parts. Okay, I'm going to say okay, and now the gears is one part and my planes is another part. I'm going to delete the gears. We don't want them. So let's think of what can we do here now with this. And I'm going to load a brush here in a minute that I got from our man, Mr. Joseph Drust. Okay, so, and I'm going to show a couple images to give you guys the idea. But let me walk you through first how to create an actual NanoMesh brush. Right? So if we wanted to say, let's use, since we've got the dog, okay, we want to turn this into a NanoMesh brush. Okay, so all we have to do is position the dog where we want it. Okay, you might want to turn perspective mode off when you're doing this as well, so you can really see if you're snapped and they're looking straight on the dog. I got to use the webcam when I can. Sorry, I got to do it. For those that have watched my Did You Know That, so you know that's me, Crazy Bean. Okay, so all we have to do is hit the B key now, because that's how I want the dog to draw out. And I first have to create an insert mesh brush. And this is asking me, hey, do you want me to append to the existing one or make a new one? I'm going to make a new one. And then now that he is an insert mesh brush, okay, I'm going to hit B, and then now I can hit the create NanoMesh brush. So this has now created the dog as a NanoMesh brush. So obviously these buttons are in the brush palette along the top here. So you can create a NanoMesh brush, create an insert mesh brush. But I find myself wanting to use the brush palette more, hitting the B key, and then they're just right here. It's a nice convenience factor. Okay, so if we go back to our plane, when we were doing the micromesh, we were telling it, hey, it's going to all the polygons. Okay? So now what I want to do is now using this NanoMesh, as you can see, this is pulling up something that we've all talked about before. Okay? So what I want to do is use just any polygon I want. So this is in essence ZModeler. So if I hold the space bar, you'll see it says insert NanoMesh now is the option, and I have a single polygon. So I can now pick and choose, hey, I want a polygon, that particular polygon to have the dog. And then maybe I want this one to have the dog, and this one, so forth and so on. So we now have a menu, okay, here. And then this is the benefit that we have over NanoMesh over using the micromesh, okay? So now I have all these options. And right now I have 3 dogs, okay? And I have an index slider here. So it's at 2, 1, and 0. So at index 0 is one of my dogs. So this allows me to, after the fact, be able to rotate in any axis that I want. So even if I want to change up this axis and put it at 90 degrees, I can do that. You can see that that dog's sitting kind of halfway in between the plane. So we can play with our offsets as well. So you got your Y offset, you got your Z offset, and so forth, changing your height, changing the size. So this is the first thing that's really nice to have that you don't get, okay, with being able to use a micromesh. So we already have the capability, oh, after I've drawn it, I can still adjust my size, I can play with my rotation, I can get crazy and adjust along one length or just maybe only on the height. So it depends, okay? So now we are getting update, boom, on the fly, okay? So the other beauty part about this is these are now an instance, right? So our polygon count isn't changing. So it's still at 1,089. So even if I was to draw another dog, right? See, it's still sitting at 1,089. We can go crazy here and draw as many dogs as I want. And because we're using the ZModeler, okay, I can hold that space bar. I can even say all polygons, and then we can have a plane full of dogs. Who doesn't want that? It's an army of dogs. Okay, so every single polygon's getting the same dog. And then when I do any rotations, it's a global rotation. Okay? And then, yes, you will be able to replace any one of these. And I'm going to get to that for sure. Okay, so I want to start doing something a little more fun here. Okay, so let's look at our desktop here. And these are the ideas that we want to start playing with. So Joseph, Mr. Dressed here, took the time, went out and took photos, and he turned the scan data of real life examples to make something like this. So this is all NanoMesh, right? So we're going to use Joseph's brush and kind of walk you through this so you can see the benefit here of how we can create things and do what we want, okay? So we're going to, okay, I'm just reading questions for you guys coming through. I'm not going to update one mesh. So this will update one mesh. So as you update one mesh in this example, right, whenever you update this one, it's going to update all of them at the same time. Because when I drew this out, I said to do along all polygons. Okay, so I'm going to delete this NanoMesh. So down here in inventory, I can say delete one. And we'll go through all these settings. So now you can say I have no NanoMesh. I'm going to load Mr. Joseph Brush Dressed right here. So I'm going to say load brush, and I'm going to say something like this. So he's got this brush made. So the beauty here is this was first an IMM insert. So when I hit the M key, I get all the pieces that he made. So what that means, as an example, if I went back to the brush palette and we took, say, again, this one, right? We select this one, and then I say B, and I say convert that into a nano. So now I can draw out that piece, right? But what I can do is hit the M key, as in multiple, okay? And then now I can switch up and draw whatever I want out, right? So this is pretty much what Joseph did with his brush, right? He gave the capability to, hey, I've got a bunch of items that I've scanned that I'm going to want to use, okay? So the beauty part here is he also he used photogrammetry, so he's got the color information as well. So it's appreciating the poly paint or even your UVs. Okay? So what I want to do now is let's just start saying, let's grab some of these needles. That looks like a good one. Okay? And I'm going to say spacebar. Let's do it on all the polygons. And now I'm just going to start drawing them out. And you can see they all have these needles. Okay? So the problem we have here is it's too perfect. It's CG perfect. Okay? So what I want to do is randomize this. So I can click on this little randomizer, and we'll have that. And then I have a randomizing seed that'll give even another, in essence, randomness to what we already have giving a random to. That's a lot of randoms. Okay? So to draw a mesh, I'm just clicking and dragging. So I'm holding this space bar because that gives me, because we're now inserting on a NanoMesh, right? So which is using the ZBrush brush. So I hold the space bar and I can say all polygons. Okay? And then I'm just clicking and dragging it out. And then it's going on every single polygon. Okay, so this is now telling me, all right, it's too similar, so I'm going to randomize this. And then I'm going to randomize the rotations. So you see they're all rotating together. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of random rotation difference there. Maybe even add some little Y rotation, maybe not so much, maybe that's enough. And then put a little variation in that rotation so they're all not rotating exactly the same. And then let's throw a little bit of some X rotation in here. That looks good. And let's have that be random as well. So if we're looking at this, it's starting to create a little bit of difference. Even though it's the same thing, okay, I'm getting a lot of randomness here. So let's add another needle. So this goes to that one question. So I can now say let's grab this needle and start drawing it out. So our options are still all polygons. Okay? So if I click and drag, it's replacing what we've done. Right? So that's how you can replace any piece. So for example, if I only want to replace this one, I would hold the space bar, say single polygon, and when I draw out, right? See, it's just replacing only that one is now being drawn out and nothing else. Okay? So I'm going to hold the space bar, I'm going to say all polygons, and I'm going to start drawing out, but I'm going to hold the shift key. And what that's doing is adding these needles, and I don't have to worry about the size because I know once I'm done, I can actually adjust the size. Right? So now I've got two needles on the same polygons, and now I can adjust. See, we'll make this one a lot bigger. See how it's bigger, right? So we'll put that at 1. Then now I can start adding some randomness to this needle. We'll change that seating a little bit. Let's add a variation in some of the rotations again. Maybe not so much in that rotation. We'll add another little rotation there. Let's add some different rotation in the X. So let's put that, say, at 10. And we're just grabbing and trying different numbers and seeing what we get. Can play with the size a little bit. And then now I'm starting to get a floor that looks like needles. So what I can do is I can turn off the show placement. So I'll click on this, and now I don't see the plane underneath, and all I see are the needles and nothing else. So let's keep playing with this. Let's hit the M key, and maybe let's grab a leaf. So let's grab this yellow leaf. I'm going to click, hold the shift key, and then that adds it again to all the polygons. So I'm going to randomize that, right? Maybe play with the seating a little bit of that. Again, play with the rotations. so we can get some even more randomness to our piece that we're doing here. So we'll do that, do a little more change in rotations there. Right, maybe not so much X rotation, maybe a little bit. And then here, let's even play with the offsets. We'll keep the Y at 0. Let's play with the X a little bit. And let's play with the Z offset a little bit. And what I'm going to do is randomize that as well. So now we're moving all these, right, in different heights. Okay, so I'm playing with this offset, and you can see they all are getting kind of various heights all over the board. So this is a nice way. So obviously the more you go with this here, the more you'll see that it's offsetting and it's adding variations. Okay, so I can move down a little bit, and then now we've got something like this going, right? Let's add another leaf. So let's hit that M key, and maybe here let's add a red leaf. Again, I'm going to click and start drawing that out. And then I'm going to hold the shift key, right, so that it gives me that leaf along with everything else that's already here. So now I have this one, right? So the key thing here when you're doing this is when you're drawing out, hold that shift key. Okay? This is telling it to add to what's already there. Okay? And then let go of your left mouse and the shift key, and you'll see they'll all be there. And then now we can continue this process. So you guys can see where obviously Joseph was heading with this, and having the randomness, it can be very helpful in creating just a very quick concept, very quick idea, right? That's a little much. Okay, so besides the leaves, maybe I want to add some rocks, right? So we're going to, again, hit the M key for multiple, grab a rock, okay? And I'm going to say now, do we want it on all polygons? Sure, let's draw it on all polygons as well. Now I'm holding the shift key, and then now I'm letting go of left mouse and the shift key, and now we get the rocks. Let's add some randomness to it. There you go. And let's play with the offsets a little bit. Maybe have it poking through. Okay. And let's add another rock. Okay. So let's hit the M key, and maybe let's grab this rock. And I definitely want this to go on all the polygons again. So I'm just holding the shift key. And you can see this is going to be kind of more like I'm trying to make like a walkway. Okay, so I'm going to say, oh, the size is too big. Let's go a little bit smaller. My offsets, let's play with this a little bit. Oh, I didn't hold the shift key when I did this, so I'm going to undo. Again, got to make sure I hold that shift key so everything stays. Let's play with this offset. I can play with my rotations. Maybe I want this to be on an angle. Let's play with this Y rotation a little bit. And let's play with our X rotation just a touch, something like that. Let's now change the size. Be a little bit bigger, maybe not that much. There. Now let's play with this offset a little bit more. And what we're going to get is an old cobblestone walkway with leaves on it and needles. And then now, because these are 5 indexes, okay, I can cycle through these and say, oh, I want some of those needles. So index 1, you can see are the needles, and I can play with this offset and bring some of them more forward. And obviously, looking at these needles are rather large compared to our rocks, so we probably want to size this down a little bit, okay, and go, oh, let's bring some of those yellow leaves through some more, okay, so we can probably play with that offset a little bit. Maybe not so much randomness, and let's make the leaves should be bigger, right, and let's play with that offset again. And right now I have the variation turned way up. We don't want it that far up. Okay, so you can see we're starting to create a scene here. Now, I want to be able to not do all polygons. And I want to be able to not just sit there and draw out one polygon at a time, one polygon at a time, blah, 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 so forth and so on, right? So let's grab a new plane. And this is what I really like about the ZModeler brush and what we can do with it, okay? So what we can do is we can paint a temporary polygroup, right? So I can hold the Alt key, okay, and then I can get a white polygroup like this. And you can see I'm just moving my hand around and painting with that. Again, I'm holding the Alt key. I'm just clicking and moving around, okay? Now, what's cool about this is this. Let's grab something that's a little more visual. The yellow leaf is a good one. Okay, I'm going to hold the Alt key, start painting, and right, and I can start doing things like this. Right, so you can see I can start painting this polygroup wherever I want. Right, but what I want to do is use the capability not to do all polygons. I want to tell the ZModeler just do a single polygon. So when I draw out, this is what I get. Okay, so you see that red polygroup. So we're going to open up NanoMesh. We'll make this a little bit smaller again. The red one layer, okay? That is now remembered. That is stored with this brush. So when I hold the Alt key and start painting, right? Right now I've got a green, okay? What I want to do is, hey, I want this yellow leaf now, and I kind of want to populate where it's going to be. So I'm going to hold the Alt key. I'm going to click on this and then click the Shift key. So that makes a copy. Notice over here the nano turned off and turned back on, right? So let me do that again. I'm going to hold the Alt key. I'm going to click on this. That makes a temporary polygroup. So in essence, I'm replacing that red polygroup now with the white. And right now what's stored is the green. So what I want to do is store the red. So I'm just now switching to only holding the Shift key. And now when I paint, I get nothing but leaves. Right? So now anytime I do hold the Alt key and do a temporary painting, okay, if I let go of this Alt key, I'm painting now with that red polygroup, and all I'm getting are the leaves. So I can randomize this by me, the user, just painting these out, right? And then now I've got a nano that I can change these up any size I want, okay? And then remember, we're not changing our polygon count. So this is a great way to kind of like paint out your polygons, and that polygon's attached to a certain nano, right? So if I switched, so if you watch, if we switch to this pine cone, and now I draw out that pine cone, see it's getting a different polygroup. And then say I draw it again, see it's getting a completely different polygroup, right? So now I can say Alt key, click on this, Shift key, that copies that polygroup, okay? So that polygroup now is my main polygroup, right, for pine cones. So whenever I use this polygroup, like I can even replace any of the leaves with that. But I can go really fast and just make this completely random. And then now I'm kind of controlling the randomness a little bit more as the user. So instead of giving that on all polygons, okay, I can just kind of pick and choose. Okay, so let's take this idea and this concept and let's take it another way. So Druss took this idea and said, hey, I'm going to take these pieces and make a bridge like this, and using nothing but NanoMesh and surface noise. Okay, so that's all he's using here. So if we render this out, right, the area that looks kind of weird right here, this is that's surface noise. So he found a nice noise that can kind of create dirt, but then the wood, the bricks, the water, the grass here, that's all NanoMesh. Okay, so when this is done rendering, you'll see our result, and then this is what we get. Perfect. Looking great. Okay, so what I want to do is load where we started, okay, which is extremely low, and this was built based upon using ZModeler, right? So very low polygons. You can see this bridge is only 270 polygons. So what I want to do is start using other brushes to mess around with this. So let's load another brush. We've got the bridge brush, okay? So this brush has also several pieces. So there's splash, there's my grass, a large rock, and a small rock. And here's my bridge parts. Okay, so we now know we can kind of randomize this. So if I now turn this into a nano, so B, create nano, 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 nano. Okay, so we click and we're drawing out a plank wood. Right, so we know we can do this now. Hold Alt, then the Shift key, and then now I can paint bricks of wood. Whee! Right, and put them wherever I want. Okay, but because this is using ZModeler, okay, I can just hold spacebar and say flat island instead. Okay, and it's going to go on every single polygon that's sitting here. All right, so you can see it's even going, putting a plank on these small rectangulars, and then it's putting a plank on the squares. So the planks are going kind of different directions, right? So what I'm going to do is tell ZBrush, hey, my alignment, I want to mess with this alignment. So I can say align by the normals. I can align by short edges, long edges, near edges. So you can see now they're all facing kind of the same direction, right? I can say align by point order, do randomness, which is probably maybe what I want here, some randomness, and then no alignment. So this is key. So remember, we started with micromesh. Okay, so I've got no alignment. If I open up geometry, okay, and now these two buttons right here, I can select just this polygroup, right? And I can say align edges, and see now they're all aligned correct. So think about this. If you're working on a character, say you're going to use NanoMesh to say feathers of a character, and you draw it out and the feathers are all facing different directions. Or you're doing something where maybe flowers and they're all facing different directions and you want them all facing the same direction. So you can actually use this button right here to align all of them facing the same way. And then of course I can spin my edges and it's just going to spin the nano. I don't need to use the spin edge though because it's a nano and I've got all these rotation capability right here, right? So I kind of want to have randomness though. I don't want it to be all the same. Maybe this rotation's a little too much, like that. Then maybe add some randomness to the planks here, okay? And you can see they're all kind of sitting in the same area, right? There's no change here. So this is why we maybe want to play with some of the offsets and say, let's make it offset a little bit. Let's have some variation in that offset. And then maybe, oh, not that much. That's a little crazy. Maybe that much is good. So now I'm starting to get just crazy planks everywhere that are kind of offsetting. And what I can do is I can tell, hey, proportions, you have things called fit, fill, and then constant and clip. So I'm going to say keep the proportions constant, and I'm going to say clip. So what you can see is some of the wood planks are being clipped. Okay, so the easiest way for me to show you this, let's grab a cube here, and I'll show you what's happening here when we're clipping. So again, we've got a cube, right, with multiple different polygroups. Okay? So what I'm going to do is hold the space bar, and I'm going to tell it polygroup all. Okay? And when I click and drag on this, all the polygroup, right, the front and back, get these wooden planks. So let's open this up and take a look at what these options are doing. So let's just put the rotation back to 0. You know, let's put it off just a little bit so you guys can definitely see what's happening. Let's change the size, make it a little bit bigger, and we'll make the size exactly 1. Okay? And the first thing we'll look at is fit. So what this does is saying fit this within that one polygon face, right? So if I start going larger, it goes bigger. If I'm going smaller, it's smaller. However, if I put exactly 1, that wooden plank fits perfectly within the face, right? So if I take proportional off, you see it doesn't fit within the face. If I put fit on, there you go. We've got it fitting within the face. Okay? So this comes in advantage because maybe I want to start doing things with these faces. Maybe I want to start maybe tiling it along the edge or vertically, right? So we can say a vertical of 4 and 4 here. So now I'm getting multiple planks on one face. And then right here we can have a pattern. So I can say only along the border. I can say checker odd, right? And then now I can start saying, no, let's go proportional and maybe make the sizes a little bit bigger. And then now I can make stuff like this, right? And then, of course, we're going to want to play again with this offset and play with the randomness here a little bit. So we can start separating these planks of wood. And, of course, I would probably play with rotations, right? And maybe add a little bit of variation to that rotation. Maybe not so much. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm telling it proportionally. The minute I hit fit, see it's trying to fit within the one polygon, right? And then now I've put a pattern on it and I'm tiling it. So let's go back to 1, okay? And then let's look at fill. So now it just looks like some kind of slate piece, right? We'll put the size back to 1. Again, that's really important, okay? And I'll change my rotations back to being 0 here, so you guys can see what's going on, and we'll put our offsets back at 0 and put all rotations. So you can see what this is doing. It's stretching that wooden plank along, right, the whole face. So fit is more about making sure when size is set to 1, the wooden plank doesn't have any of the variation as far as being, have the length be longer than the polygon face. And this is only when the size is set to 1. Same thing with fill. If size is set to 1, it's going to fill the entire polygon. Now someone's asking about, can I have a variation in the length? Of course you can. That's what all these variation sliders are here, right? So you have a width, height, and length here, right? So you can play with all these sliders, okay? And when you start playing with these length, and if I start adding more, right, this variation slider then will start playing with the lengths, right? Some will get shorter and some will get longer. So if you look right here, see how short this one is right here compared to the rest of them that are a little bit longer, and another short one there. So yeah, you have 100% control. And this is the difference of using nano over something like micromesh, right? I have a lot of control here. Okay? So we're getting some randomness here. We'll turn that off again. Oh, I lost one. So again, I can hold the Alt key and then hold the Shift key, and now I've copied and paste. Okay? So what I want to do is also say, make sure it's constant and consistent, constant shape, proportionally, right? So constant height, okay, the height of it. But what we also can do is clip, right? And what that does is clips, okay, based upon it's drawn out. But because this plank right here is also stretching to over top of this one, if you keep going size and size, you'll see it'll go past the point. But it's still being, you can see there's still a clip right there. So let me offset this a little bit, and let's have a little variation, right? So you can see, whoops, that this side is being clipped, but because this is adjacent to another face, it can continue growing. It's about clipping on the open edge that doesn't have an adjacent face to it, or a face that's tangent. Okay? So there is no options currently to save shortcuts for this. I think I saw the question coming through. So you would have to save out different Z-modeler brushes if you want it always to be beveled. There's no shortcutting to this. Okay, but what you can do is save out different Z-modeler brushes and obviously assign hotkeys to that. Okay? So this is kind of what these options are doing here, right? Is being given us the capability to mess around with these and figuring this out. So let's go back to this again and look at, now we've got a bridge here that has multiple polygroups. So I can now say, let's put the small rocks on here, and let's do polygroup all, and start drawing it out, and now I get those rocks. And I want to randomize it, right? And then figuring out how big do I want these rocks to be. Okay, and then maybe start putting a variation in the rotations again. So we can have very different types of rotations happening. And sometimes it doesn't take much. It's just a little bit, right? I say, ah, that's a little too big. And then if I clip, you see it's clipping off the top. Because the ones that are here, like this one, see it's clipping it and flattening it. So it's not allowing the rock that's sitting on this face to go past because it doesn't have a tangent or adjacent face. So I don't have as much shooting through the wooden planks. Okay, so I can really have a lot of fun with this and start manipulating and playing with this. I can, even if I want to, I can say edit mesh, and now I'm looking at this rock, right? And I can grab any brush that I want, and I can even edit this up and completely change the shape of this rock. And you can see this is a decimated also piece of geometry. So Joseph sculpted it first, okay, and then moved along and said, oh yeah, there. And then I say edit mesh, and then they all get updated. Okay, so this comes in really handy, right? Being able to, even after I've drawn it out, I can edit up and mess around with it. Okay, so I definitely want to do more to this, right? So maybe inventory. Okay, I want to delete all or delete just one. So this is how you would delete your nanos. So you can go from the wooden planks, select it, and delete one. Or I can say these rocks, I'm not feeling it, delete just that one nano, and now it's gone. Okay? If I want to do one to mesh, what this is going to do is convert your NanoMesh into the geometry now. So now I have the geometry, you see my polygon count just went up. Okay? So if I undo, I'll get my NanoMesh back. Okay? And if I undo one more, I'll get both back. So if I keep hitting one to mesh, it's going to turn these rocks, right, into the geometry. So now I'm at 2.5 million, right? And now you can see all the polygons, and I say one to mesh, and now it's going to first the wooden planks as well. So when you're messing with this and you start really playing with this, you might start creating 5, 6, or 8, like when I was doing that floor grid in the beginning. So if you want to just convert all of them really quickly, you can hit this button right here, convert BPR to Geo. Okay, that button right there, when I click that, it's looking at micromesh, and it's going to convert them to real geometry, and it looks at nanomesh and converts it to real geometry. Okay, and fiber mesh as well. So one button will convert all of them. You can see now nanomesh is completely off because it's gone. Right? So converting it into real geometry is just clicking this. Okay, and this is all to brush, right? So it's sending it to the brush. So you see now I have the pieces as a new insert multi-mesh brush. Okay, so and then we can replace, of course. So if I select out something completely different, I don't know why I keep going to this one, but go with it and say nano, and then I say M, let's grab this screw head, right? And I can replace nano from brush, and then now you see I like the settings that I have, but I didn't like that rock. Or maybe I want to use the rocks that ship with ZBrush. Maybe there's these brushes in here, and I hit the M key and say maybe I want to use one of these instead, and then say from nano, and then boom, it's converted, and now I'm using that rock. Okay, so I have different variations here, and I can swap out the nanos. So your inventory, in essence, is dealing with the actual mesh itself. Do I want to convert it into a mesh? Do I want to send the nanos to brush? Do I want to replace with the selected nano with a different piece? Do I want to delete one or delete all? So let's look at what else we can do here. All right, let's go again, grab a plane. Let's keep it very simple here, and let's add a texture to this. Right, I'm going to add this texture, and I'm going to tell ZBrush to apply this as paint. Okay, so I'm going to go in the poly paint and poly paint from texture. Okay, so now I've got some color there. So this is what I have. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's look at what we can do with nanos now. So I'm going to grab something simple. Let's turn this insert sphere, okay, into a nano. So I'm going to click that, hit B, create nano, 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 nano. And so when I draw it out, I get this. Okay? So let's say all polygons again. And I draw this out. And now this is what I have. So what's great here is you can also use paint. Okay? So there's a section here for colorize. So you can tell it, grab the color from the mesh, grab the color from the UI. So MRG means material and color. Material and color. So UI color means just grab the UI color. So that's this color over here. So whatever this is, say grab the UI color and see all the spheres are red, but then see the plane still has that paint that I applied to it. Right? So this allows me also to assign different materials. So I can have this NanoMesh have a completely different material if I want. Right? So I can grab a different material, let's say satin, and then I can say UI material, right? And then now if I switch back to basic, see the plane's got basic, but the spheres now have that other material. Okay? So I can say both color and material. So these are just dealing with whatever material you have selected here and whatever color you have selected here. These next three, okay, are dealing with the mesh you've drawn on. So if I say mesh color, you can see all the spheres are actually taking on that color. So even if I was to do randomness, we got like a carpet now looking thing. So it's literally taking on the poly paint of the sphere now, of the plane. Each of the spheres are taking on that color. So I can do either the color or the material. So I can even have both options. I can just have the nano select anything I want over here. I can have it be just the color. And if you guys remember, if we grab now, here, let's delete this one, and we go grab Joseph's brush again. If you remember, he had color based upon UVs here, right? So when I'm drawing these out, so here's a mushroom, right? See, the mushroom's taking on the color that's built into the brush. So in essence, you can have three ways to apply this color. All right, and I'm shutting that front door. Bam! Thanks, Thunder Bunny. We haven't had one in a while, and for those that are just tuning in on Facebook, I have silly things I like to do, and bam is one of them. So we can either use the color material from the UI, we can use the color material from the mesh that we're drawing on, or if we've built the brush itself to have the variation of color and stuff, I can have that as well. And I can still even tell it, say, take the color from this, right? So remember, we got textures, everything involved. So I have a lot of different ways to apply the color for this nano. Right? So this is in essence pretty much what colorize is doing. It's allowing you to do that, and then I can even restore back to my nano. Okay, so if I start messing with the color here, I can manipulate it back. So our colorize is allowing all that change. UVs is allowing us to use either the base mesh UVs, right, or the base mesh texture, right, back and forth. So whatever one I want to use. So if I turn on this texture now, you can see each mushroom is getting the texture individually. So whatever texture's in here, I'm using base mesh texture. Okay, that's getting, each mushroom gets that applied to it. So if I switch to the base mesh here, so now I'm using the underlining paint, right, or texture to individually go to the mushrooms. Right, so I can do either or. I can have it go to each individual, right? So this is beneficial because if I start making a nice texture that I want these mushrooms to have, I gotta have every mushroom have the same texture in essence. Jelly beans. Who doesn't want a jelly bean mushroom? Actually, that'd be pretty cool. Okay? So, or I can turn these off and go back to what Joseph had originally. So that's all the UV section is. It's saying, hey, do you want to use the UVs of the mushroom, which there's a UV layout, and then because it's an instance with Nano, every single mushroom gets this texture, or no, just use the texture and apply it across the board to all these mushrooms where it's applied. Okay? So this is a lot of fun to be able to mess with this. Right? So each mushroom now is getting a portion of the jelly beans. Right? So you can see the greens, there's a green section, so forth and so on. Okay? So this has opened up a lot more things for us to do. Okay? So even if we were to have some fun here and think about stuff like hard surface, or think about even organic like we're playing with now. Here, I'm going to delete all of these. All right, and let's start all over with a cube. I don't want a texture, forget that. No texture. I'm going to go to initialize state, and I'm going to say single, we'll keep it 2. We'll keep it 2 by 2. All right, and I'll say a cube. So now what I have here is a cube with different polygroups. Okay? So let's say the purple one gets some kind of bolt. Okay? So I'm going to say B and say let's grab another different insert mesh brush. So I'm going to say I, and let's use the model kit. Okay? And then I'm going to hit B and turn that model kit now into a nano. So now you can see I got this. And when I hit M, okay, it's going to pull up what I can use. So let's say this is some hard surface piece, and I want to say I kind of like this screw head right here. Okay, so I can hold spacebar and I can say not all polygons, but polygroup all. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and you can see each one of those faces get this piece, and I'm getting it on the back as well. All right, so I now have a nano. Okay, I've got it on the front and the back. Right, let's maybe edit this. So now I'm looking at this and saying, all right, let's do a little bit of a Q meshing. Okay, we'll go symmetric, and let's pull up this part right here, painting my temporary polygroup, say something like that, and then maybe here in the middle, we'll do something like this and pull it across. You know what, let's do these at the same time, something like that. So I've completely changed how this looks, right? So now I got something like this. When I hit edit mesh, see they all get the update. Okay, each one of them now have the update to them. Okay, so if I go to edit mesh, right, I'm allowed to change and edit this. So maybe I even want to say, you know what, let's insert an edge here. So I'm going to say insert a single edge and click there. All right, and I'm going to Q mesh along a poly loop and maybe put a little lip on there, and then I'm going to bevel this right here. Okay, and then I'll even throw in, let's crease that up. Crease by PG or polygroup. So now we're getting something like this. Right? I don't like the look of that when it's smoothing. So I'm going to crease also that edge, that edge, that edge, and the same thing on the either side. So the beauty here is we are editing this and messing with it and getting what maybe I want. Maybe something more like that. Okay, and if you guys know me, I definitely like to play with my crease level. Okay, and then my dynamic will change and be something a little bit softer like that. So I'm like, yeah, that's what I like. It's looking good. So I'm going to edit mesh. So now that is all updated. Okay, And what I'm going to tell it to do again is let's randomize this. Let's tile this a little bit. Okay? So I'm going to say maybe tile 4 by 4. So you can see that's going across all 4 faces. The same thing. So I'm getting 4 this way and 4 that way. Okay? But I want to play with the pattern. Maybe checkered border even. Maybe only along the border, or that maybe even here's just the border, right? Here's maybe just the corners, and now it's only in the corners, and then I can play with the size and say, yes, that's more what I'm looking for, something like that. Perfect. Right? So this allows me now to put this anywhere I want again. If we remember, hold the Alt key, click, and then hold the Shift key. That's now copied that polygroup. So if I say, oh, I want it here as well, boom. I want it here as well, boom. And I definitely want it here, and I definitely want it here. Oh, I uncopied. There you go. So now you've got this look with these little screws in the corner of each piece. And then, of course, we can rotate these any way I want, right? And then I can add variation so the screws aren't all facing the same rotation, right? They're all now having a variation because I'm now having variation in that rotation. So you can really mess with that. You can mess with any of your rotation sliders, right? Same stuff that we've kind of spoke about already. Right? And then there you have it. So this is a great way to throw, on pieces. So even if you took an organic shape, right, and even taking something like the dog seems to be the theme today, right? And I tell it, hey, I'm going to polyloop it. No, I want to switch to nano, okay, and put it on all of them. So now this dog is made of this, and I can even say hide the placement, and now I've got some cool looking dog made of nothing but the screws, right? And then I can even say randomize this. It's pretty cool artwork. And then offset it, and then add variations in those offsets, right? And then, of course, rotating, have variation in those, probably throw in a little bit of a rotation here, have a variation in that maybe. So he almost looks like he's made of pennies. So now you got this cool looking dog with all these pieces, right? And if I turn off randomization, I can then tell it to tile also 2 by 2, right? And then now we have that, and then I can say, well, what pattern do you want? I'm going to say just in the corners, right? Or horizontal line. So now it's looking at each polygon and giving a horizontal line, right? And of course, the more I add, see, the more you guys will see this horizontal line. Right, so now it's doing that. Now you got this kind of looking thing happening. Very cool. There. This is totally Bob Ross happy little tree stuff, right? And then now if I want to render this out, right, go ahead and render it out. And mind you, our polygon count isn't changing yet. All we have, okay, is that. And then see all the shadowing updates and everything works. Right, and this will also send to Keyshot if we want to use Keyshot. Okay? So, we have the capability to completely control our nano. Bam! Or we can do randomness. We can use it to do some artistic. Okay? So there's definitely ways to use this in many avenues. There's things that people use it for a leaf, right? Or for, think about the stuff that we've talked about, right? If we even think about grabbing, let's say, a sphere, and let's actually grab the better sphere. Let's grab this polysphere. We'll make it pretty low, even a little bit lower. All right, and then we start saying things like, Here, we'll turn this off to make sure our stream stays a little bit better. I see there's been a lot of audio problems, and I apologize for that. But you guys know the answer to that, right? When there's an issue. I'm not even going to say it, Kyle. I'm not even going to say it. Okay, so let's just say we get to something like that. That's fine. Works for me. Great. Right? And then I could do, say, something like this maybe. Mask it off. Let's go to even fiber mesh. Okay? And then I say, all right, let's add some fibers to this. Hey, it's a tree. Right? It's a little excessive. We don't need this many. I definitely want a bigger coverage to them. Right? Let's make my gravity go up. Maybe like this. Definitely still too many. That's better. And then maybe even more coverage. Right? And then having a little length to it. So you have to say something like this. Right? I can accept this. Right? So this is now one subtool and this is another subtool. Right? And the key here when you guys are going to make nanos, try and keep that polygon count as low as you possibly can. Right? So now I'm going to tell ZBrush to merge these down. I don't need it to weld. So now it's one piece. So let's convert this into an insert mesh brush. Okay, that's an insert mesh brush. We're going to say new. And then B, create a nano, and now this is a nano. Right? So if we go back to even our dog here, okay, and then I'm looking at this, and I'm going to say, let's play with a little bit of polygrouping this time, and say, just this portion. Okay, we got a nano, polygroup all, and draw it out. And now we've got this happening, right? And I can say, let's play now with the adjustment. Maybe let's play with the alignment. Do you want it random? Do you want all the point order? Right? Long edge, short edge, right? So you see they're not all aligning the way that you want along the normal works. So the rotation isn't what I want. I want them rotating maybe a different direction, so probably X. Maybe let's do a -90. Right? And then I can play with the offset. Not in the Z, not in the X, the Y. Right? And now I'm getting this as my result. Right? And then of course, if I show placement turned off, it hides whatever mesh have nano. So these have nanos on them, and so they're not going to show. And don't forget, we can click here, we can say no alignment, right? So we can say no alignment, and then click this here and go to geometry, modify topology, and hit align edges, and they're all aligned the exact same way. Okay, so they're all looking at the same direction, and they're good to go. And now we've got some crazy ch-ch-chia, ch-ch-chia dog. Okay. So I saw that voting was happening of the next topics that we have in store for the next Did You Know That? Please make sure you vote for those. I don't know who's winning right now. But again, for those that are just joining us for the Did You Know That here for the ZBrush Live that we do, you guys choose the topic for the next week. This week it was nano. So it looks like one of the rendering is winning. It's too tiny for me to read. Okay. And then this week was NanoMesh. So that's pretty much everything for NanoMesh. We're going through all those settings, and of course you've got copy and paste. Okay. So keep in mind, you can have complete control of this, and you can make it completely random. We can use painting. We can use UVs. Okay, so it's very open to whatever we want to do with this. All right, so that's it for today. I appreciate you, and thanks for tuning in and watching our little nano. Okay, and I would encourage you to sit and play and think about stuff that you want to do. And if you do have questions or something that you want to have, obviously this is being recorded and put it up in our YouTube channel. But anything that you have, if you want to even want to make a request for, hey, the next topic for Did You Know That? It's streaming at pixelogic.com. So Kingsley will put it in there again in the chat. So it's streaming at pixelogic.com. So you can use that for A, if you want to get a hold of me and ask me a specific question, especially that it's very involved. And then B, if you just, hey, this would be a great topic. So all welcome. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. Did I miss any questions, though, before I go to the Pixelogic staff? Let me make sure that I didn't miss anything. And we will take care of the audio. This is our first time doing a multiple streaming out. So we got to find the right settings that are working. Because we're sending to our Twitch, our YouTube, and our Facebook right now. So we want to experiment and try it with us on this. Being problematic. Hold on, I'm just reading a question. Sorry. Don't mind me. I'm just reading a question. I find it being well, Seagull, you're asking about tiling and aligning UVs. So I'm assuming you mean like actually UV editing and aligning them. We don't have a UV editor, so it'd be best to use another program if that's what you're referring to. But obviously, if I take, say, something like this plane, for example, has perfect UVs, 0 to 1. So whatever I put on this, right, this would tile. So whatever I sculpt on this or paint on this, you'd be able to convert this into be tiling out and exporting. So I'm not sure if that's where you're going. You might want to, if you, for that tiling question, send it to streaming at pixelogic.com because there's probably a lot of back and forth I need to ask you to make sure I'm understanding what you're looking for as far as the tiling the UVs, to make sure I'm understanding what you want for a question. Okay, any other questions reverting to Nano or anything else before we call it a day? Call it quits again. Last minute voting, get that in for the next topic. It looks like ZBrush to Photoshop is slightly winning. Not by much, but it is winning, which that'll be a fun topic. Do I use layers in my workflow? I definitely use layers when I'm starting to sculpt organic stuff, thinking of like hair, thinking about like, let's say skin or wrinkles or maybe anything like that where I'm kind of not sure if I'm going to like the results. That's when I definitely start using layers. But other than that, I don't really use layers. I just sculpt away and go at it. You're trying to use surface noise generator. So are you trying to use surface noise over here in the alpha palette? Whoops, where you can create a surface noise. That you're going to have to play with for tiling. You're going to have to bring that out, probably the Photoshop to tile it. Or this seamless slider, depending on the noise, could help. That's what this seamless slider is. It's trying to make something tile. So you can try using this seamless slider. But the noise is a little crazy. It's not going to work. So you might have to take out to, say Photoshop and do an offset filter. I would also use the plugin that Joseph Dress wrote. That is our Nano Tile. That's what I use for now for all my alphas. Let me get that. Let me find that one sec. Hold on. Let me in ZBrush Central here. Let me bring this over. Hold on, I gotta bring this over here. So in the scripting utility forum, give me one sec, and I'm pretty sure I shared this already. I don't know, everything, it all combines together. I do so many presentations and stuff. It all meshes together because I teach as well. So right here, Nano Tile Textures. This is a great one. This is actually what I use all the time to create tileable stuff in ZBrush now. Because this is using a combination now of array mesh and tile. I mean, array mesh and NanoMesh. Array mesh and tile. Array mesh and NanoMesh, right? So We've already covered array mesh. And did you know? Well, we covered it in the very, very, very first launch of ZBrush Live when we went for like 4 hours. I went for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and I went over array mesh. And now we've covered NanoMesh. So Joseph wrote a plugin that's pretty much just combining both, right? And then this would be the best way. And then you can create all your maps as well. Your albedos, your groups, your heights, your AOs, your normals, your BPRs, your bumps, and you create stuff like this. So this is what I would recommend if you're trying to create something tileable inside of ZBrush. I would do this. This is what I would use. It's very helpful and very useful. There's obviously other ways. You can use the 2.5D as well, which I still use. But this would be the best way. Okay, but if you're using back to this, if you're just using the noise in here, this isn't necessary. All of them aren't going to tile. Some of them will, but not all of them, right? If I went into the actual noise plugin, right, and then I said hex tile, right, this, and say OK, and I say OK, it creates this, and it's actually giving me two noise at the same time. Thanks for the BAM, Seagull. Right, and then now I can play with the alpha in here and go to modifiers and see about tiling this. Right, so we can say 4 by 4, right, and then I can see about dividing this up. But even this isn't going to tile. So let's grab a standard brush, grab that alpha. See, it's going to tile, but not perfect. Right? It's best, if I wanted to have that, I wouldn't turn it into an alpha like I'm doing. I would just use the surface noise down here on the mesh itself. So I would grab this and turn on hex tile, say OK, here we'll up the strength. And then this, because it's applying, looking at the surface, this will tile. Because now I can edit this tiling. And see, I can even add noise. So here we can add some crazy noise in here. Let's go real crazy. And I can do stuff like this. So think about like in gaming, floors and stuff like that. I can do a difference. I can do a minimum. I can do a max values. So now it's only going in there, and you got your mid values, the difference, multiply, and a mix. So I'm mixing this and the plugin. So this mix slider gives me the mixing capability, right? So I can drop it or mix it more. It's totally up to me what I want to do. And then do something like that. This was one of our topics, though. All right, so that's it. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you at the next Did You Know That in a couple weeks. Next week is Joseph Drust on this time slot. Okay? So, well, not this time. He goes earlier in the morning. So, but Tuesday, okay? That is him. He'll be doing the Ask ZBrush, and then I will go the following Tuesday. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of